All right, so we are going to talk about designing first with natural language and Blazor for a better user experience. And I'm a big fan of natural language, and I feel that we are in this era of AI first, where mobile first was something that we were talking about ages ago. So I'm going to rewind for a minute and talk about mobile first. Do you remember back just a few years ago when we were all using our mobile phones and none of the apps and websites were built for mobile? They were all desktop. We had to pinch and zoom and it was a complete mess. And it took us a long time to get from that built for the desktop style over to the mobile responsive websites that we have today. And we were in that pinch and zoom mode for a really long time. I feel like that's where we are with AI first right now. We are in that pinch and zoom era, and we are trying to figure out what exactly AI first is and how do we get our existing applications to play with AI so people can be more productive. And one of the things I've seen a lot of is we have these blank canvases with a giant text box and a button, and users are supposed to understand and know what the application does. And really, it's hard to tell just from an empty text box and a button. And these AI-powered apps are typical of this. And users are really confused by it. Like, they don't know exactly where to start. They know they can maybe enter something in the box, generate some text, and so on. So there's a problem right now that we're all facing, and that is that developers have to know how to build these new AI first applications. And then, of course, the users have to understand how to use these AI first applications. And there's this big disconnect right now that we're all trying to figure out and be the first ones to get these apps just right. And I think one of the problems with AI in the whole conversation with developers is we see a lot of chat demos. We see a lot of chatting with AI. It's become the to-do list of AI application demos. And I think this is really selling the capabilities of large language models short, because one of the real gems here is natural language processing. And what that is the ability for us as humans to talk to and interact with software like humans. So I'm going to try to stray away from the typical chat demos when I talk about AI today. And let's start things off by talking about smart components. Smart components are AI-enabled user interface components that are an evolutionary step towards user experience rather than throwing away our entire application and presenting the user with a blank text box. And we saw some of these come out of Daniel Roth's team on the Blazor side, with some examples of how AI might interact with some user interface components. And one of the better ones is this response, the autocomplete text box. And this is more than just your normal autocomplete. This is autocomplete that's contextually aware of our application, and it can help us fill in information that's pertinent to the app we're using. And then we can also do things like semantic search. So this is allowing us to do search rather than by a text, searching by specific literal text. We can search by semantic meaning of that text. So for example, if I wanted to search for dairy, I might return some things like milk and cheese. Or if I wanted to say, I want the opposite of milk, I might get something like hot sauce. So this is a very powerful search tool that we can use in our UI components that let users interact and search much more fluently and interact with them more in a human-like way. And large language models have a lot of capabilities that we can leverage in our user interfaces. We can transform and translate text. We can do language-to-language translation. We can talk with natural language. We can work alongside relational data. And code for large language models is just another language that it understands and can interpret. So try to keep some of those things in mind as we go along.
So one of the things that I do is I work at Progress Software on the Telerik UI for Blazor components, and I was looking for a way that I could start moving some of our UI components into the AI space. And one of our most popular components is the Telerik data grid. And I thought, how can I let users do all of the functionality of the Telerik UI data grid, but use natural language? Right now, they can sort, group, filter, page, and do all sorts of things, but they have to understand where all of the user interfaces are to do all of these activities. And I thought about some of the challenges of how users could interact with AI and how AI could process the user interface that's on the screen. We could give the AI the entire web page and allow it to understand what that web page is and try to manage what the user's request is. But that's pretty complex. There's a lot of DOM rendering going on. There's HTML, there's CSS, there's JavaScript and events. So that didn't sound like a real potential solution. So I started looking at what is the lowest barrier to entry for getting AI to understand what our user interface is doing and how the user wants to interact with it. So when you think about large language models, keep in mind that all of the things that it can do are not mutually exclusive. So for example, we can feed it code and data schemas, text in any language, and give it unstructured data. And our outputs can be code, translated text, and structured data. And we can mix and match these as much as we want. So what I came up with was this control-based, state-based strategy. And I'm going to show that to you now. We're going to jump into some demos, but the idea behind it is I'm going to extract the metadata from my UI. I'm going to send that to AI and let users query that metadata and process commands against it. So let's jump over to Azure AI Foundry, and we're going to do a quick and fun demo here. So I have some prompts that I'm going to put in Azure AI Foundry. I'll take those off to the other screen for a minute, and we'll paste it over here. And what this prompt says is you are an AI assistant that helps the user query and JSON data. And you are a JSON parser. Sorry, I got a little piece messed up there. So we're going to give it a user query, and we're going to give it some JSON data. And we're going to say you are a JSON parser. You will use the user's query to modify values in JSON format. Only update the values in JSON data. Don't modify the properties. And there's another typo in there. Sorry about that. Do not modify properties. And that is our prompt. I think when I pasted it in, it kept the original text in the text box and kind of got stuck in the middle there. So we are telling the AI to only manipulate the data that is in a JSON schema. So the first thing I want to do is give it the JSON schema. So I'm going to say JSON data to identify that this is my JSON data, and it's going to have a data object that has a first name and a last name, and the property values are my first and last name. So let's give it that, and it's just going to echo that back to me. Now, what I'm going to do next is give it the user's query. So it has this first and last name properties here. I'm going to say go ahead and swap the first and last name. Let's see what it gives me back. So it is giving me back my last name now as my first name, and then my last name is Ed. So it has swapped the values for those two properties. So it's smart enough to understand that I wanted to swap the values and not the positions of those properties within the object. So let's give it another query, and we'll do something a little bit more interesting with it. I'm going to say, use the phonetic spelling of my name in Bulgarian. So now we're combining a couple things here. We're giving the AI data. You could say this is code. It is JSON. And we are now using another language here. I asked it to translate into Bulgarian the phonetic spelling for my first and last name. And you can see that it has done that. So I'm going to go ahead and reset the data here. And we're going to do something a little, actually, let's keep it the same. This might be a little bit more interesting. Let's use another language to translate this one more time. So I don't know how to speak German. I used a translation tool to get this, but I'm asking it again to use the phonetic spelling, but this time back to English, but I'm using German. And it's going to think, and we come back, and now I have Ed Charbeneau back. So now it has taken the German language command and reset the values in this JSON object back to English. This is a very powerful tool that we can use to our advantage. So we're going to take this concept and apply it at a broader scale. So in this state-based control strategy, what I'm going to do is extract the metadata of the Telleric data grid, give that to the AI as JSON data, and instruct it how to manipulate that data as if the user was interacting with that UI component. So let's take a look at what that would look like. So we are going to go to an application that is running using Aspire, and this is a Blazor application written using .NET 10, and it has a Telleric data grid on it. Now, again, I can do all sorts of things with this user interface manually. I can sort, filter, and apply all kinds of ways to parse through this data. And as a novice user, I might not know where all of those things are. What I'd rather do is just talk to it. So I'm going to open my AI assistant here, and I'm going to say, sort amount in descending order. Now, because I have speech to text here, I'm able to just speak the command, and I can press apply. And now when I hit submit, it has sorted the amount in descending order. I can also do things like group. And notice that in my user interface here, I have some predefined things for the users to just select from. And this is a nice way to do user experience with these AI tools, is to provide some easy prompting that they can click on and interact with. So we'll go ahead and hit apply here, and notice it has applied our grouping. So what this is doing is, behind the scenes, we're taking the state of this grid and we are giving that to the AI. So it has all of the metadata. What is the current columns being sorted? What are the current columns being grouped? And then when the user asks a question, it's able to manipulate that metadata. And when we get it back in our Blazor program, we just apply that state to the grid. And now it is working as if the user is manipulating it with their voice. So this is just one concept that we have with these natural language interfaces. Let's take a look at some other capabilities the application has. So we're going to go to the home page now. And we're going to start talking a little bit more about multimodal large language models. So what we can do with multimodal large language models is we can feed them things that are not only text, but images and voice and audio and all sorts of things. So this application is taking that idea that we used for the data grid and expanding it a bit further. And it's allowing me to control the actual application itself. So you'll see me hook deeply into the Blazor framework with this as well. So first of all, let's see what its capabilities are. So I'm going to press the speech to text button, and this is going to tell the application that I want to talk to it.
I'm here to help.
So hopefully the audience can hear you when you say you're here to help.
Yes, I'm here to help, and I hope the audience can hear me clearly. If there's anything you need assistance with, feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to provide the information you seek.
What capabilities do you have?
I can assist you with a variety of tasks, including providing information through basic chat, handling return merchandise authorization queries with the RMA Assistant, managing data grids with the Data Grid Assistant, and enabling voice input and output for easier interaction. If you have specific questions or need assistance with any feature, feel free to ask.
Okay, so somebody in the comments said it was loud, so I try to turn it down. Hopefully that helps. So let's ask it to do something. It has an idea of what its capabilities are, and I'll tell you in a minute how it knows that. So let's ask it to do something like change its voice. Can you change your voice?
Yes, I can change my voice. If you'd like to select a different voice for the speech output, please let me know, and I can retrieve a list of available voices for you to choose from.
What voices do you have?
The available voices are Alloy, Echo, Fable, Onyx, Nova, Shimmer, and Ash. If you'd like to choose one of these voices, just let me know.
Sure, can you change your voice to Ash, please?
I've successfully changed my voice to Ash. If there's anything else you need, just let me know.
All right, so it was able to change its voice just by me asking it to change its voice. And you'll also notice that it gave me a list of voices. When I asked it if it could change its voice, it said that it had several voices to choose from. And it said it could retrieve an available list of voices before it did that. So let's take a look at what it's doing behind the scenes. And sorry, I don't have a Jeff Fritz voice. Maybe 11 Labs and Jeff could collaborate on something and hook me up. All right, so the first thing that is happening here is the AI has a list of tools that it can operate. And on my main chat interface on that home screen, you can see that I'm using the Microsoft Extensions AI library, and I am giving the AI tools that it can run. One of the things that it can do is get voices. So if we look at get voices, it is going to call a method called get voices. And if we keep going in, we'll find that this is a text-to-speech service that I have running in the background. And this is using Azure AI services, and it's pulling in that list from Azure of available voices that I can use with my API key. And once it has that, it can relay that back to the large language model to form an answer on what voices are available. And the way this works is the tool is described with this description. It says this method gets a list of voices from a speech provider. And then it also has a tool that can set the voice for the application. So what this is going to do is when I ask it to change its voice, that voice will come in as a parameter, and it will call a method to set that selected voice. So that was what you just saw happen there. So I have tools that I can give this AI assistant that it can run and use code within my application. And this is basic tool calling. I know you've seen MCP mentioned a lot today. This is like a localized version of MCP. It's just running code and methods within my own application here. So let's see what else we can do with this. What can this application do?
This application provides various features, including voice input and output for interaction, a basic chat interface for asking questions.
So I'm going to interrupt it because it's going to go on and tell me all
I'm
the things
here
that
to
it
assist
can do.
you.
Oh,
If
wow.
you have any questions or
It's getting a little bossy. There we go. Let's calm it down. All right. So it says it can manage the data grid. So it shows the data grid assistant that I showed you earlier, and it mentions an RMA assistant. So let's see if it can take us to that RMA assistant. Can you show me the RMA assistant, please? Notice I'm hands-free here, folks.
I've navigated you to the
It
RMA
did that
assistant.
automatically.
You can now explore options
Just
and
5
features
minutes.
related to return merchandise authorization. Let me know if you need further assistance.
So how did it navigate me just by using my voice? Well, once again, we have tools that we gave the AI. So we'll look back at our chat options here, and I have a voice settings tool, but I also have a navigation tool. And my navigation tool has a method called getRoutes. Now, what getRoutes does, it goes through an array of routes that are available. And all of the routes that are in my Blazor application are described with a little bit of metadata. Now, this isn't your normal metadata, though. This part is. But what is attached to it is what makes this work so well. So what I've done is I've taken this main menu of data, and I also have a main menu vector data set. So the metadata that has all of the routing information and the names for those routes, the human language names for those routes, is stored in an in-memory vector store. So when I'm in the application and I ask it about a certain functionality in the app, it can do a semantic search to find the route that it needs to route me to that part of the application. And why that matters is people might not ask for the page that they're looking for in the exact terminology that it's listed in the route or even the description. But if I use semantic similarity, I can get pretty close just by using natural language. Now, once I use getRoutes, the AI has a tool called navigate-to, and I'm going to speak the query that I want. There's going to be a vector database search, and it's going to find the route that it needs to navigate to and pass it to the navigate-to function. So the AI is doing the tool calling here to navigate the application. And this is actually just tied directly into Blazor's navigation manager. It's going to go get that URL and pass it in so it can route us directly to it. So that brings us to our RMA assistant. Now, the RMA assistant is another take on this state-based control strategy. And you'll see a little bit of the tool calling and some of the state that's passed back and forth in the debug window while we fill out this form. And this is a pattern that we can apply to existing forms and now enhance them with AI to make them easier. So I had an RMA form that was very manual, and I wanted the assistant to walk users through filling out that form. So now what we can do is we can just interact with this AI assistant, and it's asking me to get started and provide an RMA number. So again, I can use voice. I can say my RMA number is 1735B. And we'll go ahead and send that to the form, and it's going to fill in the correct field. Now it's asking me to provide my name. I can just go ahead and type that in. So we have multiple ways that we can input these values into our form, and we can easily and quickly walk through this with our AI assistant. Now it's asking me for my email address, and I'm going to try to throw it off a little bit. I'm going to say my email address is 555 Main Street. And it says, it looks like I've provided an address. Can I clarify an email address? I've seen this actually do multiple behaviors. That's one thing that's really interesting about these live demos. Sometimes it will actually fill in the address, knowing that that was an address and not an email address. And then it will invalidate the email and ask for it again. Let me try it one more time. There we go. So it's invalidating the email at least. So let's see what the tool calling is in the debug window. So it asked me if I wanted help filling out my form. And then when I replied with my RMA number, we sent some JSON data up to the AI. And it used an update form method and assigned that RMA number. And then it responded back on its status. The next time it asked me for data, I gave it my name, and it called the update form method again.
And then when I mistakenly gave it the address, it asked me to clarify, and it made sure that the data I gave it didn't go into the email field because it was an address, not an email address. So it called the clear form tool to make sure that the email didn't get accidentally set with that mailing address. And this is an interesting problem that I ran into when I was building this, is before I gave it dedicated tools that it could call for specific scenarios, when it would get bad data, it would completely kill the form. It would clear every bit of data from it. So it's important when you build these things to give them designated tools that they can use to do various tasks. So let's go ahead and continue filling this out. So we'll say ed@telerik.com is the email address. We'll give it our main street. Oh, doesn't seem to like that now. There we go. Took it that time. I'm going to try to quickly enter some data in here because there's something else I want to show with this demo. So we'll say this is a smart oven. Say it's a model AB. Enter some numbers for a serial number. Return reason defective. It doesn't like that. Broken? All right, so now it's going to ask me for a date. I have a date picker. I can also enter data using the AI assistant. And then I have a condition, we'll say used. And this is something I thought was really interesting here is now I have a drop-down box. It says repair, refund, store credit, or exchange. So let's say I want my money back. And let's see what it does. Okay, so it's invalidating that. And it says that it found something similar. I can ask for a refund. So what it actually understands the values that belong in this text box because it has the metadata for all of those values in here. So it's not going to set it to something that isn't in the dropdown. And it also has validation information too. So if I ask it to go ahead and submit the form, it can try that, but it's not valid, so it won't submit it. So, whoops, I asked it for a refund, and it figured out I wanted a refund. Now it's asking me if I'd like to submit the form. We'll go ahead and let it do that. So we'll say, sure, go ahead and submit the form. And you can see it has been submitted successfully. And in this tool call, you'll see every time I entered information, it's going back and updating my form using the tools that it has. And I'm going to ask it for a summary of that form. All right, so I have my email summary. And it says, here's the details from your RMA. I'm going to go over to Copilot. And I'm going to ask it to translate this for me. So I'm going to say, Copilot, translate this into another language. What's a good language here? We'll do Swedish. Okay, so I have my form data now in Swedish. I don't know Swedish. I can't really validate that that is actually what it says, but I'm going to go ahead and clear this entire thing out. And let's start again from scratch. This time, instead of going through the form step by step, I'm going to go ahead and just paste this entire thing in Swedish and hope that this works. So we'll go ahead and submit this. And the large language model is able to take all of the data that I just pasted in, even though all of the fields are written in another language than they are on the form, it can still form that semantic relationship between the form fields that are in the form and the ones that are in the text that I pasted. And it's going to go through and field by field insert those into my form for me. So what this means is a user could interact with this without having to know the native language of the UI that's being represented. So you could think of the data grid component that I showed you. You could interact with that using your voice in your native language, and it's just going to work. There's no extra work for the developer to make that happen. So this is all using Microsoft Extensions AI, giving the AI JSON data and describing to the AI how to process that data and asking for JSON data back. We get that JSON data back, and then we can apply it to objects within the application. So I see a lot of chatter in chat, and I'm almost out of time, but I'll try to take a question if I can spot one here.
So funny enough, chatter is around. Can you do your voices?
So you're breaking up a little bit. I couldn't hear what you said.
The chatter is down. Can you do different voices?
I still can't hear you. I'm sorry. Your microphone is really breaking up bad. I don't know if it's my audio or your mic. I don't know if anybody in chat is getting that as well, but the audio is very choppy for me.
How about now?
It's a little bit better.
The chatter was. Can you use voices?
So I'm getting a lot of people like the voice recognition, voice output part of it. Yeah, folks saying that your microphone's bad. I'm so sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the homepage that interacts with voice, this is all using Azure services, and it is using the Azure speech to text service to generate the audio, and then Blazor is playing that audio when it receives it on the client side. There is also an animation that you probably have seen at the bottom when it does talk. We'll trigger that one more time.
I'm here to help.
So that's actually taking the audio that's playing and converting the waveform into into canvas animations, and that canvas animation is strobing behind the scenes. So the application's actually aware of this voice animation, how it was built. Can you show me how to do speech to text?
To use speech to text,
Gave it the wrong command.
Can you show me now?
it seems there was a misunderstanding. I'm here to help.
Yeah, I think I can hear you.
It seems like you've used.
Sure.
Trying to get my application to stop listening to me. Yeah, so the entire application, let me pull up my slides real quick as we go. I know you've got another guest probably next. We'll put this up so people can get the links. Is this working? There we go. We'll just leave it like that. You can grab the grid bits at Telerik.com. I also have an AI course coming on Dome Train. And if you grab the link there for Code Magazine, you can read about how this was all built. And the bits are up on the Telerik AI showcase on my GitHub if you want to download this and check it out yourself. There are a bunch of keys that you'll need for various services, but if you plug those in, you should be able to get it working.